Hey everyone, thanks for joining. My name's Derek. I'm the CTO at Reon, formerly known as Vault Connect, and yeah, thrilled to be here tonight.
Hi everyone, my name is Anton. I'm co-founder of 1inch. Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Hello everyone, my name is Ankit. I'm the co-founder of OneBalance, and we want to remove the words chain, bridge, and gas from the user journey altogether.
Hey everyone, excited to be here. My name is Nikhil. I lead product at the Wormhole Foundation and excited to chat today.
Hi, I'm Yoav Weiss from the Ethereum Foundation, working on account abstraction and stuff.
It's super exciting to have you guys all here to speak about cross-chain interoperability and much more. But let's define a little bit like what's the state of kind of like cross-chain standards. Feel free to just disagree with each other, speak, and just chime in if you think it's relevant. I see, Anton, you want to start, yeah.
Okay, I'll start. Yeah, we're actually working on a new non-custodial cross-chain standard, which is non-custodial, but the only way to achieve non-custodian, as we know, is atomic swaps. So it's atomic swaps spiced it up with intents on chains where it's possible to have intents. For example, on Bitcoin, it's probably not possible, but possible to implement the atomic swaps. And we're making the standard permissionlessly extendable. This means that any team have opportunity to build own implementation for any chain and run this service as their owners of this service. It's like completely like public good and ownerless.
Is there a number? Is there a number for this standard, or what's it called?
Not yet. There's a discussion on Ethereum Magicians, but yeah, we will have numbers soon. It's like 2 drafts for now to submit it to GitHub. Sorry, but we already have implementation for EVM, which we call 1inch Fusion Plus, but it's like our own implementation, MIT, open source. So even if any team want to launch own version for EVM, they can write their own code or use our code or like modify our code or like do whatever they want.
Yeah, I think Anton was referring to specifically one problem of chain interoperability, which is bridging and swapping. But I think when you zoom out, there's more problems. Also, when you talk about chain, Anton was already talking about EVM and non-EVM chains. But yeah, when you zoom out, there's more problems also with standardization. At Reon, or formerly known as Wallet Connect, we have app and wallet SDKs. And basically, as an app builder, there's a world where you just want to have an app like Stripe Payments, for instance, is on Solana and also on EVM. So you want to make that easy for an app builder. And then there's no standardization whatsoever on these app interfaces between, or the little standardization that exists, we did. But yeah, so the standardization layer is there on the wallet side. There's standardization layer things. There's things on the cross-chain bridging side, and on I guess Ankit and ourselves, we're all working on chain abstraction. There's a bunch of standards flying around. So yeah, there's many problem spaces when it comes to chain interoperability, both on EVM and non-EVM.
I would definitely be, because obviously we work across a lot of different VMs and ecosystems. Solana and EVM are some of our biggest. I would be curious to know maybe how do you think about standardizing UX or standardizing like wallet experience across EVM and Solana? The systems work so differently.
I mean, yeah, what do you want to standardize? So the layer that what you wouldn't standardize is, I don't know, something on the smart contract layer. But things that we've standardized is basically, if you're a browser extension wallet, how do you advertise to the app that you exist? And that should be the same. That could be the same in all networks, such that the app builder doesn't have to have an if Solana and if something else. So this you can standardize. And then since Reon or Wallet Connect have 100% market share on the mobile wallet side, it's actually standardized. We made it all public. On the browser extension side, it's not standardized. So some parts, the parts that you can standardize, and then maybe why does this matter? I'll give an example. Like I'll stick with the example for Stripe checkout, where it's on Solana and on EVM. And the experience isn't great because the end user in the wallet doesn't see the SKU that they're purchasing. They don't see who's providing merchant fraud insurance, like where can you go complain if the iPhone isn't sent to you. And so that wrapper, that experience, that should be standardized. And then if the actual transaction is on Solana or EVM, wouldn't be standardized. So that's sort of my intimate take on that from also working with many wallets.
Yeah, I think like there are two levels of standards that are sort of emerging. One level is how does a dApp communicate to the wallet that, okay, these are the set of instructions or transactions that I want to get included to achieve my cross-chain intent. So one is 5792, which just enables batch transactions. So you can basically batch transactions for even multiple source chains to get executed in batch one after the other. And then the second is 7683, where you can basically publish that, okay, so some sort of an on-chain limit order that okay, I'm willing to send these many input tokens and I want to receive these many output tokens. And so this is how like dApps can communicate to the wallets that this is what they want to do. The other part is how do you move assets across chains? And for that, you again have like two sorts of standards. One is like XERC20, which basically enshrines a bridge, enshrines a burn and mint bridge on top of an ERC20 contract. And then there's also like 7680 or something that Optimism wrote recently in the super chain ecosystem to basically move assets around. So I think those are the two types of EIPs that I've seen emerging. Maybe Yoav knows. Yoav can categorize them more.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from the user's perspective. You want to get to a point where the user doesn't have to know that there are multiple chains involved. So the standards are derived from that. It can be standards more on the UX side, on the high level, but it can also be things like you described, like how to move liquidity efficiently, or how to lock funds on one side in order to release them on the other without the user noticing, how to pay for the gas on a single chain and get something done on other chains. So all of these standards together, and besides, we need to standardize the way addresses are even described, which is what we're doing now with the chain-specific addresses. So that when the user uses an address, pastes an address to the wallet, the user should not even think about which chain the address is. Things should just work behind the scene, including chain discovery. I mean, discovering chains that the wallet is not aware of. That's a standard that we still need. It's actually multiple standards. And we need to, and then how to bridge in a standard way to this chain, preferably without trusting any entity along the way. So get to a point where the user never has to switch chains.
I also think 4337 is a pretty important standard because a lot of dApps require the message.sender to be the user, and with account abstraction, you can a solver or a paymaster can bring your transaction on chain. So even if you don't have funds on the other chain, a solver can give you the funds and then execute the call for you. And so that is another important standard for chain.
Yeah, so this has actually been one of the design goals for ERC 4337 from the start. I mean, people look at it only as account abstraction, which is like for a specific chain, for the individual chain. But we were always looking at it as a way to also solve trustless bridging, because with 4337 now the bridge operator cannot do anything besides the transaction the user chose, because an account gets deployed if it doesn't exist on the other chain, but the account is signed by the user, it self-validates its own creation, and then it validates any transaction that you send from it. So unlike traditional EOA bridges, where the bridge is actually the message sender, or the bridge is a part of the transaction, it's in the loop. But with account abstraction, the bridge is not in the loop. The message sender is never the bridge, and all the bridge can do is either deliver the message or not deliver it, but you cannot do anything else, which means now that bridge operators cannot cause any harm, which by definition means that it can be permissionless. Now anyone can participate in a bridge.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, from our perspective, at the Wormhole side, like building a cross-chain interoperability solution, I mean, we love to see more standards, especially on the wallet side. We work across a lot of different VMs. We love to see standards like for intents, for moving liquidity cross-chain. I think it helps the industry tremendously. When I just think about standards, I think it's important to keep standards very simple, as simple interfaces as possible to allow for different kinds of implementations under the hood. And that's kind of the way that we look at the development of a lot of these standards.
Yeah, I would agree here. Having complicated standards would lead to having even more complicated implementations. I'm doing protocol engineering for like a while, and yeah, I think the approach here is to do only what's necessary, to find like the minimal amount of what should be done to achieve all the rest things which you think could be useful. This could be part of implementation, because implementation could have something extra, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, we are more wary of or more hesitant towards like, overly prescriptive standards that include implementation details, and a lot more. I mean, I think standards that are very, very simple are the most exciting ones that, can allow for lots of different trade-offs in implementation, which is ultimately like what will help a lot of different protocols and will help a lot of different users.
Yeah, I really like when I don't need to speak too much on this panel. So thank you for doing that. But I want to just touch on the developer side, like around tooling. Do you think like developers has enough tooling to implement all these kind of like specific protocol or like application layer side? Or are you thinking like building this modular kind of like ecosystem will actually bring more gaps around developers?
I can start. I think since we're approaching the same problem from different directions, from protocol, like service side, and from wallet side, I think that from protocol side, there's not much can be done, especially in like permissionless, non-custodial space. But for solutions which are approaching from the wallet side, I think we could have something like improvement proposals implemented in layer 2 or layer 1, which could help to achieve what we want. But on the other side, I'm not sure that we can add something what would help more than what we already have.
Yeah, at Rion we have a wallet SDK and an app SDK. So maybe to define what's a developer, and yeah, as mentioned, both of our app and the wallet SDK is pretty much in 100% of apps and wallets. So there's something what the wallet developer wants. And then also when you categorize the app developers, it's quite different. So there's like the desktop app. I'll say 1 inch, the core product, I'll call for the sake of the argument, a desktop app, it's like trading. I know you have a lot of other things in the amazing wallet and everything, but that's like in your multi-chain, the app itself, the contracts are on many networks. So that's one category. Then there's the cool new consumer builder. Like they just build a cool consumer app on, I don't know, Base or something. They just want to have one app. They don't want to worry about any of this. Then there's also the more enterprisey application. They maybe just want to have a crypto login. So it's very different, and they have different requirements. But I think what we need to do, and I'm talking my book, that's what we were focused on, is brain off mode for the developer. You just write a smart contract, and at least everything around that just works. And in our app SDK, you get a swap, you get an account abstraction smart wallet that you can use with a passkey and a social login. So it's brain off mode for the developer to onboard users. Yeah, do they have the tools that they need? I think it's become a lot better over the last year. I definitely recommend my friends and family to build an app now that can serve normies. And 1 year ago, that wasn't the case. Like today, normies that you onboard in your app with our SDK, again, talking my book, but through the ERC 7437 wallet, the end user that you onboard doesn't need to have gas anymore in our app SDK. So it's way more convenient. I'll stop here.
Yeah, I think that as you develop, it's an iterative process. You're always going to have to keep improving tooling, especially as you release new standards, as you release new ways of doing things. You're going to have to continue to improve tooling iteratively. And I agree with the point that there's different classes of people and developers who you need to build tooling for to solve different problems. I mean, we take building tooling really seriously. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to use like interop solutions like Wormhole. And so as more standards roll out, as we might integrate with more standards, we want to build tooling to be helpful there. I mean, I'd be curious to get someone like Yoav's opinion on like whether there is sufficient tooling for the new standards that are coming out, or whether we need tooling there, whether the existing stuff can help.
By definition, there is no tooling for standards that don't exist yet. The tooling comes next after. After we agree on standards, usually you start seeing tooling fairly soon in this ecosystem.
Maybe question like around like trade-offs, or you guys want to jump off? Would you jump? Okay. No, like my question is around like, we are debating different kind of like architectural design. Like what are the trade-offs between them? Like what do you think like are the compromises that we need to kind of like get into in order to get better usability and like chain interoperability? Because I'm not a big fan of like, ecosystem fragmentation, especially on the developer side, but maybe you want to touch a little bit on that. No, the question is a little bit about what do you think are the trade-offs that we need to choose in order to get better usability?
Is this the trade-offs in the standards itself, or is this the standard trade-off in like when you do cross-chain, what are the trade-offs?
Yeah, could be things like, okay, going in this direction, we are compromising, I don't know, like scalability because it will be more secure. Or could be like, we need to get better, like, let's say, developer adoption first, so we are compromising on specific things. And I want to understand also, like, also on the EIP side, like, if there is some kind of either compromises or like trade-offs that we are doing in order to get like different angles.
I think like there are 3 or 4 main trade-offs that you need to look at when you try to define something cross-chain. Like at least on like the account level or the wallet level, the main trade-off that you are trying to figure out is how much freedom you should give to the user versus how secure your wallet should be. So like I know users who basically just use hardware wallets and they verify the hash before clicking a button. And then I know users who basically use Telegram bot and send their private keys to their backend and they just click a button and just trust whatever is happening. And so those apps generate like 20-30% of the order flow on mainnet. And so there's like a wide spectrum of users, and wallets need to be very opinionated on what type of users they want to deliver to. There's also like on the solver side, solvers, or like when you're trying to move things across chains, you need to decide whether you need to move tokens, and so things that are fungible, or you need to pass messages across systems. And if you're moving tokens, then you can give that task to a solver, and then the solver can take on the risk, take some price, and then basically execute the thing on the other side. But if you're trying to pass messages, so if you're trying to basically do a governance vote, then you cannot have loss in that message passing, and that is where things like Wormhole or Layer Zero do come in. And for just passing tokens around, things like across are much more beneficial because solvers can take on the finality risk and give you like very quick speed, but at a price. And then on the third side, which is more on like how do you pass messages across, like there's also this trade-off of security. So do you rely on like the L1 security itself? So do you rely on the L1, L2 bridge to basically move assets around or to basically pass messages around? So weight of the whole Ethereum validator set, or are you happy to making some trade-offs, which is there is another like validator set that has spun off, or like a multisig that has spun off, which is basically oracleizing the passing of messages across chains. So these are like I think the 3 main trade-offs that you need to think about when you're designing anything cross-chain.
So I wanted to address 2 of them. First, regarding wallets, I don't think users should have to decide. I mean, on the security parameters, decide between managing a private key and with all the difficulty of that, and using a Telegram bot. What the real solution is, to use account abstraction to develop accounts that are both secure and usable. For example, we are seeing all of these accounts that use SecP 256R1 and can use the secure enclave to sign transactions. So if you have a wallet that uses that, the user never has to hear the word private key or public key. There are no keys. There are only devices. So you generate the account from one device, then maybe you use this device to add 2 more devices, so you have some backup. But then from the user perspective, it's devices that have access to the account. And then if you combine that with proper parsing and displaying of transactions, then the user can get security without using something custodial like a bot. So that's so regarding
there's one pushback, or there's one pushback against this is like some and you give me your opinion. So I have seen like a rise of apps that are using Google SSO login to basically authenticate if a user can use their app or not. And there's like you cannot do a Google SSO login verification on chain. You need to basically, there has to be some off-chain component that is verifying that this SSO login is correct and then signing via these user private keys. So does it fall into the definition that you're talking about, or it's
no? If someone at Google could take over my account, then I don't see it as a good solution. But it doesn't have to be that way because Google supports passkeys, for example. So you could have your own key and not rely on SSO. You can use the SSO, but then ultimately you use a passkey. And passkey is still not as good as having your own key in the secure enclave because actually Google has an encrypted copy of the key, but still it's better than just the SSO. And another thing is for using something like recovery. Let's say your account has keys that reside on your devices, but you need recovery. You need a recovery option. So you could use something like ZK email. ZK email uses DKIM keys to prove ownership. You can prove ownership by sending an email from your account. And for that, I also wouldn't use just Google, but if I make it 2 of 2, let's say I open an Apple account and a Google account, and I need to prove ownership of both in order to recover my account, then I consider it a pretty good trade-off for most users. Now, also coming back to the other thing you said about bridges and multisigs, so I think we should be able to move away from multisigs fairly soon and have trustless bridging, because once we have the ability to look at a single source of truth on layer 1 using something like L1 load, now you can have bridges. You can have bridges between layer 2s that where there is no multisig and every operator is trusted, because the messages actually can be verified. So you send message from one L2 to another, and the network and each of the receiving side can verify that the message was actually part of the L2 state of the sender side. So we should be able to move away from any bridges that require trust.
I also have it. The question was on trade-offs that we're making, and both of you made a couple of points, and I also have a take. First of all, Ankit, you mentioned the Google login. In reality, most users that interacted with that just got an EOA that's stored on some Amazon server, which is a UX trade-off. Like people wanted to get something off the ground. And then also another trade-off there was usually that creates these dust wallets. So app-specific wallets where the user needs to on-ramp that don't even have an option to export the funds. Now all these dust wallets are integrating our wallet SDK to fix that crutch that they've integrated. That's one trade-off that happened. I think on the AA side, and again, we have an AA wallet, so I'm a big fan, but I think there's also a lot of UX trade-offs that were made. And you mentioned some security concerns with someone at Google using your funds. But I think the way more real problem we have with AA today is if you're in the Trust Swift wallet or if you use the Coinbase wallet, you can also get censored because if it's a passkey or just by the fact that that particular wallet application is the only wallet application on earth that can interpret the particular smart account logic that in this case Coinbase uses, hypothetically you could build your own wallet that can read that, but like pretty much, and like if it would be large scale censorship or something, someone could. So, but I think also that's like a midterm problem, or I know it is because we're building the interoperable library that fixes that problem. But those are all, I think, trade-offs that we're taking. And then I very much agree with, yeah, you have the passkey as a second factor, and then maybe a decentralized ZK email, maybe you have an authenticator module. So yeah, all these things are coming and trade-offs are being made.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what you said. You mentioned the ownership thing among different chains, and managing EUA ownership among all layer 2s is complicated and painful. But managing multi-sigs among all these chains is even more painful, because when you need to change one of the wallets, you need to perform transactions on all of these chains. Actually, I can't wait to see ownership is unified and maybe extracted to layer 1, so it could be used among all the L2s, and that's the thing what can be achieved with improvement proposals which can be added, and that's what probably will not be achieved with other chains which are not layer 2s to Ethereum. And generalizing all these things, we have a lot of different options here. We have custodian as for ultimate security. We have speed, we have rates for exchanges. We have, it's like multi-dimensional system where we're trying to optimize some of them. And there are a lot of different standards and implementations which are optimizing some of the parameters and sacrificing other parameters. And moreover, we do not have any, we want to have everything at the same time, but it's probably not possible. So users, sometimes even the same users could have priority. Sometimes speed is their priority. Sometimes exchange rate is their priority. But sometimes they want to have non-custodians to have like ultimate protection. And that's the case, that we will eventually never have all the parameters which are like absolutely the best. But users may want different things at different points in time and operating different amounts, operating amounts on their behalf, operating amounts on behalf of entities they represent. So that's much more complicated.
Yeah. So I agree with you that there are always trade-offs, and then you need to make the right trade-off for yourself. But where we may differ is that I think we are still very far away from the point where we already did our best on each of these trade-offs, and now we have to choose between them. I think there can still be a lot of improvement. To use one example, you mentioned you mentioned that if you have an account that is actually secure by keys or devices, you need to do it on every chain separately. So that's definitely something we are going to fix. And I already mentioned the L1 S load. So with L1 S load, we're being able to access a single source of truth. We should be switching to key stores. So accounts should not keep keys on each chain separately. They should be accessing it directly from the layer 1 state. And this way, you only, if you, let's say you rotate your keys, you decide to change your key or add a new device, you only do it once on a single chain, whether it's L1 or whether it's a designated L2 with ZK proofs. It can't be optimistic because you need it immediately, but you can be a layer 2, ZK layer 2, especially for that. So for example, on this front, we don't have to make a compromise. We can say, no, keys actually should be managed only on once, regardless of how many chains you're operating on. So we should, when making these trade-offs, we should first think of whether there are still things where we can avoid trade-offs and get all the benefits. Sometimes it's possible.
Yeah, I think just what I can say from the bridge perspective of things is that I think that when it comes to trade-offs, it's just like trade-offs all the way down. So for example, L1S load can solve the EVM and L2, like the Ethereum and L2 ecosystem. But then when you want to connect to other L1s, when you want to connect to other VMs like Solana, then you need to make a determination among speed, security, and price for sending your messages. And so, if you want to use ZK, ZK is not readily available on all these different ecosystems. And so, that's first not available, but then it's also going to take longer. It's going to cost more. You have to generate proofs. And so that's one trade-off. And it's also not, you also don't necessarily need such high security for all use cases. If you're doing wrapped asset bridging, maybe you want super high security, but if you're just sending data that's more ephemeral, then, it's fine to use a much faster system with a bit less security because it's so fast. So for example, intense protocols are much more ephemeral in the way that they send messages. And so it's okay maybe to take less security for a faster solution. So I think it's just trade-offs all the way down, and it's gonna address different use cases and different protocols and different kinds of projects. But yeah, that's my take.
So just to closing it up, like what are the things that you think we need to do in the next 6 months that you want to see, and how, like, what are the things that you don't want to see, like in terms of directions?
I would like to see adoption of standards like chain-specific address, standardized light client access, standardized bridging interface, and I'm saying interface deliberately, not bridge implementation, but bridge interface, so that wallets can start abstracting away these implementation details. That's what I hope to see in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I agree with what you have said, and maybe I like what Derek said earlier about standardization, more standardization on the UX side of things, like on the wallet side of things, like how wallets interact with dApps, especially across different VMs is something that we are particularly excited about and interested in, and I would love to see more standardization there.
Yeah, I would like to remove, I don't think it's a 6-month goal, but a long-term goal is I want to remove the words chain, gas, and bridge from the user journey altogether. And so the user does not see these 3 words anymore and just clicks buttons and gets the execution they want.
Yeah, I want in 6 months to see more solutions, more different solutions. Maybe, yeah, having a variety of solutions gives more ideas into space. And sometimes people picking ideas from other projects, and if we would have 3, 4, 5 different bridging solutions, we could end up with the new bridging solutions which are picking best ideas from existing ones and which are even better from others, but that's probably not 6 months scale.
I want to see Dogecoin at 1 trillion just in the next 6 months. Just kidding. Yeah, I'd like to see a killer application. For instance, and I want to see checkout in crypto, like commerce. And I think what we need for that is gas abstraction. We're building a 7702 SDK for all of our wallet partners. We're working on chain abstraction. I think that's important for checkout. And what I don't want to see is I don't want to see more of these dust wallets, app-specific wallets. I want to see more things like this smart session standard based on AA that we did. I want to see batch transactions, the 5792 standard that also a few of us here did. And what else do I not want to see? I think that's it.
Oh, I'll tell this. I don't want to see app chains. I want to see DeFi chain, not app chains. When we have DEXs on one chain, money market on another chain, ENS on third chain, it makes DeFi less composable.
Cool, sounds good. I definitely agree with more consumer-facing dApps. I think we need definitely more to understand also what consumer more needs. Cool.
LFG.
LFG, exactly. Cool. So big round of applause. Thank you so much for your time. Awesome, awesome. So I still people have some energy. So what we're doing now, and then we can just network, eat, and drink. We just do a quick picture all together in front of this beautiful stage. And I want to just shout out, I think Candice and Andrew are in the audience. Big round of applause for those guys that organize all this Builder Night. So we're doing this picture. Please come on stage. and then we just closing up with drinks and food. Come on, and we need Candice and Andrew. You should also come over. We need the picture. There you are. Well done, guys. Well done. Let me put no space. Thanks for hosting me. Great. So should we shout out Builder Nights at 3, 2, 1? Are you guys ready? 3, 2, 1. Builder Nights.